everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello and welcome to the 5 Yard Dynasty Show. My name is Hannah, your regular host, and today we're going to walk through week 3 and do a review just before the start of week 4. So let's take a quick look at the top scorers of the week. Well, that 70 burger from the Dolphins really kind of put them in the spotlight pretty much this week. But looking at quarterback, your quarterback one this week was actually Justin Herbert with 29.3 fantasy points. QB2, Tua Tagovailoa, obviously of the Dolphins, 28.3 points. And the QB3 this week was Lamar Jackson with 28.2 points. Looking at running back, well, the Dolphins dominated this position this week. The running back one was Devon Achan. I think I might have said that wrong since he's asked it for it to be changed. He had 51.3 PPR points. Now, that's pretty impressive since he pretty much was going from the bench. So I think we're going to start to see him being a bit more involved. The running back 2, Raheem Mostert, 45.2 PPR points. And then the running back 3 this week, Kenneth Walker with 30.6 PPR points. Moving on to wide receiver, well, Keenan Allen seems to be staying in kind of that top 3 range over the last few weeks. He's actually wide receiver 1 this week with 45.5 PPR points. Not far behind in wide receiver 2, Devontae Adams with 42.2 PPR points. That team seems to have a really tight kind of target tree. So I think he's going to be staying in certainly wide receiver 1 contention every week. And then surprisingly this week, wide receiver 3 is Adam Thielen with 31.5 PPR points. Obviously, Andy Dalton took over as quarterback this week and clearly had a chemistry with Adam Thielen. Looking at the tight end position, tight end 1 this week, a rookie is topping the list with Sam Laporta with 22.4 PPR points, smashing all of our perceptions of rookie tight ends. Tight end 2, Travis Kelce, 19.9 PPR points, and then tight end 3, George Kittle with 16 PPR points. He often seems to benefit when one of these other pass catchers is out of the lineup, and here we are again with him coming up as the tight end 3. Moving on to some news this week. Once again, we've got injuries to discuss, which is really upsetting for the players and also for our fantasy teams. Unfortunately, absolutely gutted. Mike Williams out for the season with a torn ACL. It's a massive loss for the Chargers, and I do think it's going to be difficult to kind of fill his role within this team. But ultimately, it will be down to 2 players, Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston. So far this season, Palmer has actually been the one that's been running as a wide receiver 3, and he's been on this field for substantially more snaps than Quentin Johnston. So he's been on for about 60% of the time versus Quentin Johnston's 25%. The team have been trying to bring QJ on slowly, but I think that's probably going to change now that Williams is out for the season. I do think as it stands at the moment that Palmer will take on a bigger role and obviously be that wide receiver 2, but Quentin Johnston is likely going to see more playing time now, as I say, more through necessity than choice. Now, depending on how he handles this opportunity, I do think there is a chance that ultimately by the end of the season, as we're getting into playoff time, he could potentially overtake Palmer. But I think we're going to have to kind of see how things play out there. If you do need an immediate starter, then obviously Palmer is the guy to own, because I do think he's going to get that wide receiver 2 role initially. But if you did pick up Quentin Johnston in your rookie drafts, or you've got him on your team, I would be monitoring that situation closely, because he's going to get more opportunity now, and let's hope that he starts to use it and we start to see more from him. And I do think if he starts to take on a larger role and he is playing well, then he could potentially become much more fantasy relevant moving forward later into the season. Another injury to discuss is one that happened to Derek Carr this week. He had an AC joint sprain in his shoulder. Now, thankfully, that doesn't seem to be a season-ending injury. They were saying that he's week to week. It's looking like at this point he's going to be out for week 4 and maybe future weeks, so we need to keep an eye on that. Obviously, in the meantime, Jameis Winston steps in. For this pass catchers, I actually don't think it's too much of a downgrade. Like, we do know he has supported pass catchers for fantasy purposes in the past. Obviously, when he was the starter in Tampa Bay, Mike Evans actually did finish as a wide receiver 1 for 4 seasons while he was the starter. So I do think that he could still support some guys. So looking at when he came in last week, in the 4th quarter, Michael Thomas got 6 receptions for 50 yards. Chris Olave got 3 receptions for 46 yards. So they are throwing the ball. He is targeting his receivers. I do think that they could or will stay fantasy relevant. While he's a starter, looking at kind of super flex leagues, look, if you've got to start him, I wouldn't necessarily be against it. He can be quite a baller and he's a gunslinger, so we may see some fantasy points coming up. But we do know that he can be a bit up and down, and those interceptions are always a risk. But if he's playing well and he has a good week, I think he could be in quarterback 2 territory. But it's very difficult often to fully ascertain exactly what Winston is going to do. So I would say a risky QB2 this week. So let's have a look at some players whose stock has gone up over the first 3 weeks of the season. The first player we must discuss is Keenan Allen. He is absolutely smashing it this season. I think Kellen Moore is getting him into some fantastic situations where he knows he excels. Currently, he's running more than 56 of his routes from the slot. He's currently had a 29, 26 and 42% target share this season. That's resulted in him having 49 targets and 32 receptions over the past 3 weeks. He is doing fantastically well, but we do know ultimately that he is getting older. He's 31 now. So if I do have him on a rebuilding team, I'm definitely looking to trade him for a contender. And if I'm a contender that's pushing for a championship, he is the type of player that I'm looking to go and target in a trade. So go and have a look in your leagues. Who's got Keenan Allen? Might they be willing to trade him? See what you can go and get him for. I think if you're a contender, this is one of the guys you should be targeting. The next guy that's a stock-up guy, Zach Moss. He was thrust into a starting role, obviously due to Taylor going on to IR. He did miss week 1 when he fractured his arm, but since then, when he's been back in week 2, the Colts have been putting everything on his plate. In week 2, he saw every single running back touch, and then in week 3, he had an 83% opportunity share. Obviously, they did pick up Trey Sermon, and he is mixing in a little bit, but ultimately, this is Zach Moss's backfield. It seems like the Colts are basically going to use him as much as they possibly can until or if and when Taylor comes back. Now, there's been murmurings on X again that Taylor's saying that he doesn't want to play with them anymore, and they're saying that they don't want to give him a long-term contract. So there may be a trade coming up. He may never play for the Colts again, so Zach Moss may continue in this role further into the season than we were expecting. Volume is king in fantasy football, and Moss has certainly been making the most of his opportunities so far. He isn't going to be the lead back forever. Even if Taylor goes, I can see them bringing in another running back next season. So for me, unless you need him, or if he's, extra on your team, this is the perfect sell high opportunity to a running back needy team. So keep an eye out. As I say, if you must start him, you're in a contention, then of course keep him. But if you're anywhere, bottom half of the league, and you're thinking you're going to ultimately have to rebuild this season, then I would be looking to sell him to a running back needy contender. Another running back here on our stock up list, DeAndre Swift. Kenneth Gainwell was back from his rib injury this week, so I was really interested to see how is this backfield going to be split. Swift, he did get the start and he did have the high opportunity share, although it was only 53% to Gainwell's 47%. However, Swift made the most of his opportunities. He had 130 yards on 16 carries, and he broke off 2 big runs and 6 first down. In comparison, Gainwell had only 43 yards on 14 carries, and he didn't manage to get any big runs or create any first downs. If you have a look at the splits, Gainwell was used in all of the kind of garbage time fourth quarter. So it's possible that Swift, moving on in kind of less favourable scripts and games, he may see more of the work, but we're going to have to see how that plays out. I just don't think that the Eagles can ignore Swift's production, and I think ultimately he's going to become the clear lead back in this backfield. I think he is the guy to own. He's clearly making the most of his opportunities, and I think he is going to continue to be a starter for you in your teams. So moving on to stock down, one of the guys that we thought would be a great handcuff, unfortunately following Austin Ekeler's injury, was Joshua Kelly. And the Chargers rushing game looked absolutely on fire in week 1 when both Ekeler and Kelly were in the lineup, and they both finished as running back ones. Obviously, it seemed logical then. Ekeler suffered the injury. Kelly's going to take the lead role and run with it. He looked really great in week 1. He has taken the lead role, but his output has left fantasy managers with much to be desired. He did have a tough matchup in week 2, meeting that Titans' sturdy run defense, but he managed a mere 39 rushing yards on 13 attempts. So, based on that, he did get a bit of the benefit of the doubt. And I know a lot of people then put him back into lineups because he was facing a much more favourable defence in week 3, going to those Vikings. But unfortunately, he just didn't seem to be able to do anything. Once again, he did get the opportunity. He had an 86% opportunity share, but he just couldn't seem to do anything with it. He only managed to get 12 yards on 11 rush attempts, which is a measly 1.1 yards per carry, which is really disappointing. And also, he was just not getting the targets that we were seeing from Ekeler. So, unfortunately, I do think Kelly's poor performance over the past couple of weeks makes him impossible to start next week, to be honest, whether Ekeler is there or not. And I think his value as any kind of handcuff is also kind of ruined. So to me, unfortunately, I thought in week 1, maybe we're going to see a little bit of value from him and we might be able to sell him high at this point. But I think, unfortunately, all of that value has gone. Ekeler looks like he's starting to do a bit more work. At this point, I suspect he'll be back, maybe not this week, but possibly next week. So unfortunately, stock down for Josh Kelly. The next guy, I didn't know or think I would ever say this. We've been talking about it for years, but finally, maybe Derrick Henry is no longer the king. I didn't really expect to be talking to him or about him so early this season, but it does appear that change is afoot in Tennessee. No longer is Derrick Henry the only running back to grace the field for 90% of the Titans snaps. In fact, over the last 3 games, Tajay Spears has actually outsnapped him in 2 of the 3 games. Last week, in week 3, he was on the field for 38% of snaps, while Tajay Spears was on the field for 56% of snaps. Now, this isn't the end of the world because he is still seeing the bigger opportunity share in this backfield, but this was a low point, that he's getting such limited snaps. Now, granted, they didn't rush the ball very much this week due to a really tough Browns defense and then playing from behind. But I think, unfortunately, with this Titans offense struggling, I think it also means there's going to be less touchdown opportunities for him. And when they struggle, they're putting Tajay Spears in as the pass catching back. So I think, unfortunately, Derrick Henry's time as a kind of auto running back 1 seems to be coming to an end. He hasn't finished as a running back 1 yet this season. And as I say, with the poor offense, Spears being more involved, I think, unfortunately, his time as the king moving forward is coming to an end. Still love him. He's a fantastic runner and he always has been. But I think, unfortunately, things are starting to change there. My next stock down player, DJ Moore. This isn't necessarily kind of an indictment of DJ Moore, but to be honest, just the Bears in general. This team is clearly struggling and they appear to be imploding right now. And they seem to be set on a track to earn the number one overall pick in the NFL draft for a second year in a row. And, it's only week 3. Things may change, but it's really not looking good. The Bears and Justin Fields' struggles seem to be filtering down to DJ Moore and his production. In week 1, he barely even saw the ball with only a 6% target share. I have no idea why they didn't use him more in that week. Now, they seem to have started to get him more involved in the past 2 weeks. He's had a 25% and a 30% target share. But this has resulted only in a wide receiver 21 and 24 PPR finishes. Now, low-end wide receiver 2 is okay, but for his talent, I really think that, he could and should be high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1, but unfortunately in this environment, it's just not going to happen. In week 3, Justin Fields threw for just 99 yards. Despite them trailing for the majority of the game, the only thing that kept DJ Moore as a wide receiver 2 was that touchdown that he got. If he hadn't got that touchdown, he would have been way, way lower. I think at absolute best, he's going to be a low-end wide receiver 2 rest of the season. But the way that this offense is going, his floor is actually really, really low. It's really disappointing to see, this for more, based on this Bears offense. But this seems to be the way that it's going this season, unfortunately. So let's take a look at Rookie Watch. So every week I highlight some rookies that I'm either kind of keeping an eye on or have had good performances in that week. And I just mentioned kind of what they've been up to and what I'm looking forward to seeing moving forward. So, of course, the first one we have to discuss is Devon Achan. I think I've said it right this time. Things were looking shaky for him at the beginning of the season because obviously it was a healthy scratch for the first game. But obviously injuries have started to give him more of an opportunity. And in week 3, boy, did he deliver. I mean, it wasn't just him. Mike McDaniels is an absolute scheming genius. And he just seems to know how to utilise his players in the best ways so that they can show off their skills. Achan had 43% running back opportunity share in week 3, rushing for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as catching 4 targets for 30 yards and another 2 touchdowns. I mean, these Dolphins running backs absolutely dominated week 3. I think Achan has kind of shown that he deserves more opportunities in this backfield, and I think he's going to get them. I think he's going to continue to run behind Mostert for now as kind of the running back 2, 1B type thing. But he's clearly played his way into more time moving forward. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does for the rest of the season. Now, I have had lots of him sat on my bench last week, which was very upsetting. I've put him in lineups this week. I'm just hoping he doesn't kind of flop. But based on what he did last week, I'm sure he won't. Let's have a look, and we have to discuss CJ Stroud. He's quietly been putting up QB1 performances over the past 2 weeks. He's appearing calm and confident in the pocket, and he's been out there delivering to his playmakers. Over the past 2 weeks, he's thrown for 664 yards and 4 touchdowns, finishing as the QB11 and the QB10 over this time. I mean, I think that's really great, for a rookie quarterback where I think there were kind of differing opinions on him. Some people thought he would be, really good, and some people thought he's a pocket passer. He might not be great for fantasy, but he's showing how good he can be. He did take 6 sacks in week 2, but he seems to have cleaned that up, and he actually had no sacks in week 3. Obviously, he's a rookie, so there are going to be probably still ups and downs, but so far he seems to have adapted really well to the NFL, and I'm really interested to see him continue to develop over the rest of the season. And I think if he continues to go on this track that we're seeing, I think he could be a reliable fantasy QB for years to come. So really looking forward to seeing his development. I can't move on from Rookie Watch without discussing Sam Laporta. I mean, the saying of rookies tight ends don't produce for fantasy clearly means nothing to him because he continues to dominate the tight end fantasy landscape. Since his first NFL start, he's finished as the tight end 8, the tight end 8, and then this week the tight end 1. In week 3, he saw a whopping 11 targets, which is a 36% target share, and finished with 8 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown. It seems to me that Amon-Ra and Laporta appear to be kind of Goff's top go-to targets at the moment, and he's being schemed in as well. So I think he is a tight end one and a must start in all leagues until further notice. So I have been a proponent, to be honest, of not drafting rookie tight ends. I am from the Rich Cooling school. But looking at Laporta, it kind of makes you question whether you should start to try and pick up some more of these rookie tight ends in rookie drafts. The other guy I want to just kind of mention, because he has been putting up great performances when he's been seeing the field, is Marvin Mims. I mean, he's done nothing but make explosive plays when he's been on there. But unfortunately, he's only currently on the field for about 25% of snaps each week. For the first 2 weeks, he was the fourth wide receiver on his team, but he now appears to have surpassed little John Humphrey, but he's still playing behind Brandon Johnston. But he's done a really great job. In week 2, he had 2 targets, over 100 yards. And I think he had a touchdown as well. So when he's on the field, he's getting the ball and he's making explosive plays. So I really think we need to start seeing more playing time for him. And I'm really hoping that Sean Payton will actually give him that and see him on the field. So this week, I'm really excited to see, are they going to give him more playing time? Because I really think Mims deserves it. And I think potentially, if they do, he could become a good fantasy asset, kind of one of those bench stashes to keep an eye and see what's going on. Obviously, if you drafted him in your rookie drafts, you're going to keep him on your taxi and see how things go for the next few weeks. I'm really interested to see again what Achan does. What role is he getting? How much kind of playing time is he going to get? What's the split going to be between him and Mostert? And I think then things potentially could get a bit more confusing when Jeff Wilson comes back. But it might be, unfortunately, that Mostert and Achan have kind of played their way into those roles, and Wilson won't have kind of much of a role there. Really interested to see how that plays out. Something we'll probably discuss next week as we see how things have played out. Thank you all for listening to me and for catching up on the 5 Yard Dynasty show. You know where we are, at 5 Yard Dynasty on X. Don't forget to follow our main channel at 5 Yard Rush. Also, you can catch us on YouTube and obviously in your favourite podcast provider. So I hope you enjoyed that, and until next week, keep rushing.